just said, okay, 4 inches, that's about right. My name's Lance Matthews, and a few years ago I fell off my dad's barn and broke my ankle, my heel bone exactly, and found myself with a cast on and after a surgery and on crutches. I've got a company now, a small company here in Canada that makes a product, a medical product called iWalk Free. When I first broke my ankle and decided I was going to get rid of the crutches, it was just like a completely white sheet of paper. I didn't even know what I was going to do when I was going to the bench. Because like I just said, these crutches are useless, I mean, for what I got to do. And so I hobbled down to the workbench. And so this is what I made. Basically, you just have a little stick, a wooden stick, and you just put a shelf on it. And so your knee and a little piece of whatever was laying around foam. And so you've got a stick and a shelf, and then you need a little strut. But with a couple of pieces of hook and loop fastener, or even just a leather belt, you could just tie it on, and now you had both your hands back, and your knee was on a padded shelf, and you were bipedal, you could walk. The foot lines up with your knee, and lines up with your hip, and lines up with your shoulder, and so think of it as a plumb line. Crutches are leaned, and they'll slip out, and plus they're hard to use, they're uncomfortable, they're not efficient. If we know that there are 1 million people in the United States each year with a broken ankle, you can probably double that number safely and know that there are at least 2 million or 3 million people each year that buy and use a set of crutches. When I started, I had a product that worked for me. Now you're in a situation where you gotta shake your head for a second and go, what do I do now? Do I do this and like stop my life and forget all the other stuff that I'm doing? Or what do you do? They're going, well, you should probably develop it. And I said, okay, it's just like diving into the deep end of the pool. And so you hire an architect to draw something basically similar to what I started out with. It's a stick with a shelf on it. But because it's aluminum and custom molded plastic, you've got to cut a mold, a plastic mold for every single piece. And so all of a sudden, instead of having a one-piece thing, you've got something that's got 47 parts. And so my mission was to make it adjustable and make it reusable so that somebody could use it here in Canada or in the United States, and then they could use it in Cambodia if I got it back. You have to keep tuning it, and you have to keep making it more adjustable and better and stronger. It's amazing to be recognized when you come from sort of the middle of nowhere, really. I took a risk and I went to the biggest American trade show, the biggest American medical trade show in North America each year. It's called the MedTrade, and that particular year I think it was in Orlando, and I won one of the best new product awards there. And so I've got a kind of a cool little trophy and everything. That brought some of the American medical companies forward and started the process where I could begin to look for and negotiate with distributors. Here in Canada, I was recognized with the Pratt & Whitney Manning Innovation Award. What I'm going to do is get the product out there to the people that live here, help them out, try and recover the product, and then get it to all of the countries that have been affected by war, and I can immediately put people back to work. You have to imagine a large boat floating in water with a thread tied to it. And so if you pull on the thread steadily and gently for a long time, you'll be able to move the boat. But if you pull it too fast, you can't do it. And everybody always says it's about the perseverance. You'll always get there, but you have to be there at the end. And if you're not there at the end,
I kind of like the idea that I am my own sweatshop. My name's Catherine Walter, and I founded a company called Felt 4 years ago, and with that I've been working with industrial manufactured felt across visual art, design, and architecture. I have a background in visual art, so I've been interested in working with materials, and sort of when I moved back to Toronto about 4 years ago and reconnected with my family, things kind of converged at that time. My father and brother now run a company that was started 4 generations ago with my great-grandfather, who immigrated from Germany. It came to Canada and sort of had this entrepreneurial idea that felt would work in the cold climates of Canada. I actually did an extensive research project into the history of felt, which sort of located my personal history into sort of a larger Canadian history, even via this material, because I did this project and resulted in an exhibition for the Textile Museum here in Toronto about felt, and I specifically looked at sort of felt in the Canadian historical context, this idea of beaver hats to hockey pads. So I had felt around, and I was working with artists with felt, and I was doing this research, and so I started the company as a result of all this felt being around me. Felt is quite significant. Actually, historically, culturally, it's ancient. It's argued to be, in fact, the first man-made fabric, because it's made from pressed wool. And in fact, here's a pair of boots, actually Russian boots that were made for a number of years. They still are being made, actually, but you can see that felt can be molded to around this sort of shape. I'm interested in that kind of modern industrial, the forms of felt. As I say, it's made in sheets, it's made in rolls, and that kind of basic geometry of production that's sort of a low waste production. So a lot of my shapes are basic squares, just cut, easy to sort of, as I say, use a maximum yield of the material. Most of my products tend to be very simple kind of geometric forms, so they have quite straightforward stitching, and there's not a lot of process in the production. And I like to keep it that way. It's sort of interesting. I think it makes for a minimalist kind of design aesthetic, and I've made things like these pillows, and as you can see, there is just this really basic sort of square shape. It's stitched, simple stitching, and a kind of repeated shape again in the center, and layering. It really sort of makes accentuates the properties of felt too by using these exterior seams. You don't have to finish felt, because felt's quite interesting too. But it's not only like often used as in, say, the chair and the cube as a surface material, but I like very much that it's very structural. So you get in this, it actually has a support, it's supporting itself just by the way it's stitched together. And because felt really sort of comes into an interesting areas with respect to sustainable design, because it is a renewable resource, because it's made out of wool, and a lot of recycled fibers are used in the gray material, which is interesting. And so I even find that I make use of the scraps. So in this case, I've made these blocks that my daughter uses. Felt is quite a unique material because of its qualities. There's a real range of interesting material properties: insulating, acts as a reservoir, wicking oil, dampening sound, durable, archival, made out of wool, renewable, flame resistant, sort of self-extinguishing, can be rolled, folded, cut, stitched, be laminated, epoxied, silkscreen, adhered in different ways, shaped into a number of different forms. What I've done with the company is sort of carried it into even architecture, so taking design into even a larger sphere, and sort of working with architects on wall treatments. So taking the felt not only in just kind of wallpapering a wall with felt to create texture, do sort of different tiling or grid-like shapes, or again, work the material in a different way. So I got a lot of calls from architects saying, well, we want to use felt, and we're thinking about this, and there became an interesting even collaboration process with some projects where we sort of looked at budgets and site specifications and evolved the idea of how we could use felt for a feature wall, say. I have a lot of felt items around my house, and I've created in my own living space. It's almost a showroom in a way for my production, and because it's a sort of a testing ground too. We try out some of the products, or I try out sort of the way things will work or not. Yeah, I created a series of lights. This sconce was one of a series of lamps that was inspired by a waste material, this material that comes in rolls, and you can see the hole is in fact the product that is sold to clean machinery. And so I did a series of like a hanging lamp and a table lamp and this sconce. And I'm actually very interested in that company being almost a sort of project-based working process. So like the custom, like I do a product line, but I'm also interested in doing sort of custom work. So that I'm doing most of the production. I kind of like the idea that I am my own sweatshop. I've learned a lot just through diving in and doing some of the design things and working through prototype development and what is involved in getting something actually built and made. And yeah, but the business aspect is something that I never really had any training in. I've met and have known and do know a number of design comrades, people who have got more experience in the design world. They've been doing a product line or they've been working in this area for other years, a number of years. And yes, there's been a nice kind of sharing of information, and that has been great and very generous for some people. And then, you know, I can pass on through my experience what I've learned. Blah, 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 blah. I think that was kind of going all over the
My name is Sabina Schleze, and I'm the Managing Director of Schleze Saddlery Service. We are a custom manufacturer of English riding saddles, and in 1986 we started our business in a little 10 by 10 square foot room. A lot of what we did the first few years of being in business was done by flying by the seat of our pants, literally. A lot of it was intuitive. We made a lot of contacts, and in the first year we more than doubled our goal, and it just has been growing since then. My husband has also been an event rider. So he managed to combine his love for horses with his hobby, with then his career. Johann did his apprenticeship in Germany. So at age 22 he was the youngest master saddler. Well, we began by just offering repair services and adjustments, where Johann would go out to the stable and do the adjustments by taking the measurements on the horse and everything. And in 1987, that was a year after we started our company, he sold his first custom saddle. So many years ago we developed our plaster cast method, where we will actually sit you in a plaster cast and make a mold of your nether regions and make the chassis, the tree of the saddle, to fit you. We also make patterns, almost like a dressmaker, of the flap sizes, the seat. Everything else that has to be cut out of the leather has a pattern to it. The leather is very important. We used to get all of our leather from Europe, because in Europe tanneries have been in business for centuries. Their methods are far superior to those used in the US or Canada. Their cows are held differently. They don't have the problems with barbed wire or ticks, insect bites, etc. We've worked very closely with several of our clients who come in with a specific problem, whether, as I said, if they had broken hips or whatever, and worked very closely with them to design the ultimate female saddle. It can be adjusted on site. That's why we have what we call our fly-in saddlers, who get 5 to 8 people together at a site, and then we fly in and have one of our guys do it right then and there. I think what we've accomplished through this awareness of the importance of saddle fitting is we've educated the rider, and that's part of our whole program of extra services. My husband does lectures. He works very closely with other equine professionals, with farriers, with blacksmiths, physiotherapists, acupuncturists, chiropractors, veterinarians, trainers, judges, riders of course too. We've developed what we call the circle of influence, that whole theory of how equine professionals need to work together to provide the best possible performance for horse and rider, using the saddle as the interface for the two. And so it's a constant evolving of product and of methods and of technology within our own business. When we came over to Canada, we found that saddlery was not a registered or a recognized trade. So we worked together with the Ministry of Skills Development to put together a 3-year schedule of training, so that people who want to go through an apprenticeship program, they actually will end up with a certificate of apprenticeship, which means something. So it's always fun to talk to young people who are at the stage of their life where they're trying to decide what to do with themselves. And I'm a really strong proponent of the apprenticeship program, because I think that there has to be a viable alternative to young people who are not necessarily interested in going to university or college. And I know there are a lot of people who are happier working with their hands and being able to do something that makes a difference that they can see right away. I think the ability to mentor other young people. I'm involved with what used to be the Federal Business Development Bank's a Step Ahead program. It's a program for women business owners, mentoring other women business owners. But I've also had the opportunity to teach entrepreneurship classes at some of the high schools and also at Ryerson University. I have to say that the first probably 10 to 15 years of this business, and almost in spite of ourselves, the success of this business has been by just learning while we were on the job. A lot of what we've done has been by intuition. We've never really had, and I really don't want to say this, we've never really had a formal business plan. It was not until I finally fulfilled a lifelong ambition in 1998 and began my executive MBA that we actually learned the formalized theory behind all the things that we've been doing. And it was not until then that we actually learned that a lot of the things that we've done by intuition, by seat of our pants sort of thing, were correct. Last year we were one of the top 25 finalists in Canada for a Canada Export Award, which is really a prestigious honor. We're manufacturing probably around 900 saddles a year. Most of them are still pretty well handmade, so the numbers are actually quite big. Most of the saddleries have always come from Europe. Anything of quality has always come from Europe. And it's been a major feather in our cap to be able to export back to Europe. I've always said too, it's important to blow your own horn. Go out and talk about your business, talk about what you're doing, be passionate about what you're doing. And that's really what it's all about, you know, making a difference.
Thank you.